The next 3 weeks in Port Charles, from November 24 through December 12, unfold like a storm front creeping over the harbor. Slow at first, then suddenly everywhere at once. Hints about the elusive Professor Henry, Hank, Dalton, Daniel Goddard, drift through whispered conversations and half-buried files. The Quartermain mansion feels less like a home and more like a pressure cooker. Windermere, already haunted by its history, grows colder and more dangerous. And somewhere between fear and desperation, somebody decides the quickest way to outrun the past is to rush toward a wedding aisle that may not be ready for them. At the center of this emotional whirlwind stands Drew Cameron Matheson, a man who has reinvented himself so many times that even he isn't sure where the soldier ends and the father, lover, and would-be husband begins. His decision to surprise Willow Tate, Caitlin McMullen, with another proposal doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from a place of gnawing regret and a stubborn belief that broken things can be repaired if you just hold them tightly enough. For Willow, the sound of Drew's voice asking her to marry him again is both a balm and a blade. Once upon a time, she considered this man a safe harbor after a series of impossible choices. Giving up children, losing children, watching families fracture and reform around her while she stood in the middle, always a little out of place. Now, with a ring glinting under the dim lights, she has to ask herself whether saying yes to Drew means finally healing, or reopening every wound she has tried to bury. The proposal itself is less about grand gestures and more about timing. Drew is racing a clock he can't see: Michael's anger, Nina's influence, Sonny's shadow, the Cassadine chaos, the Dalton mystery, and even the legal storms swirling around Rocco Falconeri, Finn Carr. He believes that if Willow binds her future to his, it will force the rest of the town to stop treating their connection like a fragile experiment. He wants permanence. He wants legitimacy. He wants something that can't be undone by one more secret text, one more custody filing, one more whisper in a hallway. What Drew doesn't fully see is that Willow is measuring more than love, she's measuring collateral damage. Every choice she makes now reverberates through the lives of 2 small children who carry the Corinthos name whether they understand it or not. On the other side of town, Michael Corinthos, Rory Gibson, is not watching the proposal unfold, but he can feel it like a pressure at the back of his mind. He has spent months wrapping his children in a barrier made of routine, rules, and resentment. Wiley Corinthos, Byron Weaver, and Amelia Corinthos, portrayed by Sequoia and Serenity Mork Mako, have become both his greatest joy and his strongest justification. They are why he walks away from certain fights and why he starts others. They are why he can say no to Willow with a clean conscience, even when the word tastes bitter. Yet as the holidays creep closer, even Michael can't entirely ignore the quiet ache in Wiley's questions or the way Amelia seems to search every doorway, as if expecting a missing piece of her world to walk through it. Michael's internal debate about whether to let Willow back into the orbit of the children is not a single dramatic epiphany, it's a series of moments. Wiley asking if people stop loving you when you make mistakes. Amelia clinging a little tighter when someone mentions "mommy" in the present tense. The realization that shielding his kids from pain may also be starving them of closure. He considers carefully, knowing that once the door is cracked open again, there is no guarantee it will ever close. But just when he begins to lean toward a fragile, conditional yes, Drew's renewed proposal threatens to upset the scale. Michael doesn't just see a woman he once trusted being asked to remap her life. He sees the possibility that Willow and Drew together could form a united front that challenges every boundary he has drawn. If Michael feels cornered, he will dig in. That's the part Drew underestimates. A defiant reaction from Drew, a defensive outburst, a demand, a plea phrased as an ultimatum, could be enough to make Michael slam the door shut again, not only on Drew's access to the kids but on Willow's too. The question becomes, can Drew prove he wants a future with Willow without turning that future into a weapon in the ongoing custody and moral tug-of-war? Or will one poorly chosen word in the heat of the moment be all it takes for Wiley and Amelia to disappear from his horizon for good? While this emotional minefield spreads across the Corinthos and Quartermain landscapes, another crisis is simmering at Windermere, the Gothic fortress that never quite stops humming with secrets. Rocco Falconeri's fate hangs in the balance after a reckless act that spiraled into criminal charges. The island estate, with its dark corridors and closed-door meetings, seems to absorb Rocco's fear and magnify it. On the surface, it looks like a simple juvenile case gone too far, but those who know Port Charles understand that nothing is ever simple once the Cassadines' shadows fall over it. Windermere becomes the backdrop for whispered strategy sessions. Who should be blamed, who can be spared, and who might be useful as a distraction. Liesl Obrecht, Kathleen Gotti, never one to let a crisis go to waste if it can be leveraged for the greater good, or perhaps a more complicated version of that concept, pressures Nina Reeves, Cynthia Watros, to act. Liesl sees the Rocco situation not just as a tragedy, but as a narrative that can be shaped. If Nina publishes just the right story, framed in just the right way, it could sway public opinion, soften the authorities, and force the district attorney's office to confront the optics of crushing a troubled young man under the weight of their ambition. For Nina, the choice is not straightforward. Every word she puts into print now is scrutinized, especially where the Corinthos family is concerned. One wrong tone, one hint of bias, and she could not only sabotage Rocco's chances but reignite every accusation that she exploits pain for personal gain. Britt Westbourne, Kelly Thibaud, meanwhile, is drawn into Rocco's orbit for reasons that extend beyond medical charts and legal reports. Having wrestled with her own demons and lived under the glare of both Obrecht and Cassadine legacies, she recognizes the look in Rocco's eyes, the stubborn refusal to show fear even when it's eating you from the inside. Where Liesl sees an opportunity and Nina sees a trap, Britt sees a boy who needs someone to stand in his corner without an agenda. She is wary of Sonny Corinthos, Maurice Bernard, and the kind of help he offers, help that arrives wrapped in threats, unspoken debts, and a reputation that can make judges flinch even as it makes criminals tremble. Yet Britt can't deny the reality. If anyone in Port Charles can make the justice system blink, it's Sonny. Sonny's involvement shifts the atmosphere immediately. When he sets his sights on Ada Justine Turner, Nazneen contractor, it's not with physical intimidation, but with a different kind of pressure. the power of knowing exactly which buttons to press. Justine is ambitious, capable, and determined not to be swallowed by the corruption and compromise that have tainted so many careers around her. She also knows her office's case against Rocco isn't as clean as her superiors want to believe. There are holes in the investigation, missing context, and a disturbing sense that this prosecution may be more about making an example than about justice. Sonny doesn't ask her to break the law, he reminds her of what will be on her conscience if she chooses to ignore her doubts. His warning is as much a moral mirror as it is a threat, and that's what makes it dangerous. Britt fears that Sonny's approach, hovering dangerously close to intimidation, could backfire and harden Justine's stance. For a woman who has fought all her life not to be bullied, the slightest sense that she is being cornered might push her to double down. But Sonny has navigated these tightropes before. He doesn't need Justine to like him, he needs her to wake up at 3 in the morning, thinking about a terrified boy in a holding cell and wondering if putting him there serves justice or just preserves her office's record. In the end, what moves Justine may not be Sonny's reputation, but his ability to force her to see the case as more than a file number on her desk. As Thanksgiving draws near, the city's storylines begin to converge. Rocco's hope of being home by the holiday becomes the emotional barometer for everyone involved. Liesl and Nina find themselves surprisingly aligned, using the power of the press not to sensationalize but to humanize, carefully constructed words, a sympathetic photograph, a headline that focuses on second chances instead of scandal. Britt quietly checks on Rocco, making sure he understands that even if adults are making decisions over his head, he is not invisible. Sonny waits, outwardly calm, inwardly tracking every whisper from the courthouse. Justine Turner, caught between ambition and conscience, reviews the file one more time, then another, the clock ticking toward a decision. Back at the Quartermain mansion, the chaos that was promised at the start of these 3 weeks arrives right on schedule. The house is in full Thanksgiving mode, fresh crises layered over old grudges, too many people packed into ornate rooms with too much history between them. Drew's proposal to Willow becomes the spark that lights a fuse no one realized was trailing through every hallway. For some, the idea of another wedding feels like hope, like order, like something to cling to when everything else is in flux. For others, it feels reckless, like trying to cement a future before anyone has properly mourned or apologized for the past. Michael's reaction sends ripples through the room. Whether he offers a strained blessing or a cold warning, everyone sees that whatever happens with this engagement will either patch fragile family fractures or split them wider. As dinner is prepared and prayers are said, news filters in from the courthouse. Ada Justine Turner has agreed to a deal. The charges against Rocco will be dropped, and he will be released in time to go home. It's not framed as a favor, not publicly, but those who were in the shadows know that a combination of pressure, compassion, and raw truth pushed the decision across the line. Rocco's return home doesn't erase what happened at Windermere, but it does shift the story. Instead of becoming another cautionary tale about a young life destroyed, his name becomes a whispered reminder that sometimes the system can be bent back toward mercy. Yet even as one prayer is answered, others remain dangerously unresolved. The hints surrounding Professor Henry, Hank, Dalton continue to drip through the narrative like a slow poison. Files that should have been sealed show up in unexpected places. People who never met him speak about him with a familiarity that raises questions. The sense grows that Dalton's work, whatever dark research or morally gray project he left behind, will not stay buried. Windermere's lingering chill, the strange gaps in people's memories, the way certain powerful figures refuse to discuss specific dates or experiments. All of it suggests that the professor's ghost is less metaphorical than anyone wants to admit. And hovering over everything are those hasty wedding bells. Whether Drew and Willow actually make it to the altar, or another couple steps into the spotlight first, the impulse is the same: grab hold of love before fate has a chance to snatch it away again. The next 3 weeks on * General Hospital promise that for every answer Port Charles receives, a boy walking free, a family reunited, a legal line stepped back from, new questions will rise right behind them. Will Michael truly be able to put the children's needs above his rage? Can Drew and Willow build something stable on a foundation that still trembles? Will Sonny's brand of justice come back to haunt him, or will it quietly save another soul? And, most ominously, what happens when the clues about Professor Henry Dalton stop being whispers and finally explode into the open, dragging everyone at Windermere, the Quartermain estate, and beyond into a reckoning they can no longer postpone?